Dear humans, I stand here today not for myself, but for every tail wagger, sloppy kisser, and curtain ninja. I stand here for each one of the thousands of dogs and cats killed in shelters each day, asking you to join our cause and help us make sure every best friend has a chance to meet one of their own. With Best Friends Animal Society leading the charge, and your help, we can save them all.
Connect, I'm Tara Douglas. This week of Thanksgiving, we really want to tell all of the supporters of the Sylacauga Animal Shelter and the Feral Dogs of Avondale Mill how much we appreciate all of you. We have such a wonderful community here that pulls together and helps us find homes for these dogs and cats. They foster, they transport them. We just have any number of things that these volunteers do for us. And we appreciate everyone that shares our post on Facebook too. That has given us a wonderful way to let the community know what dogs and cats are available. So if you see a post on Facebook that any of the volunteers or that the shelter or the feral dogs post, then please share it, because the more people that see it, the better chance we have of finding homes for these dogs and cats. And you'd be surprised who you know on Facebook that is looking for a particular dog or cat that we definitely have available. And we also want to tell our shelter staff how much we appreciate them, and that's why I invited my next two guests on the show today. I have our Animal Control Officer, Douglas Nixon, and also one of our kennel techs at the Sylacauga Animal Shelter, Jay Bunt, here today. So thank you so much, guys, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
So Douglas, tell me what's going on in the animal control world.
Well, in the animal control world, it's getting cold outside.
It is.
So I'm seeing few animals on the street during most of the mornings or late evenings getting cold. They're wanting to hide, staying somewhere warm, and that's going to be the case here throughout here. Cold, they're going to be hidden. Also, with them being hidden, other animals are hiding too. So this is where the big concern is. We need to have every pet that you own vaccinated for rabies. Even if it's in your yard or anything, something can come in trying to get warm. And we do not want an outbreak of rabies if it can be handled.
Absolutely. I haven't thought about that the
Yes.
dogs and cats could be hiding with other animals there.
Correct. If I pick up one of your animals and you do not have it rabies vaccinated, when you come to claim your animal, you have to at least bring in a receipt from your vet stating that you have prepaid for a rabies vaccine. And once it's done with that, we can transfer your animal back to you. And then within a week, I will come by and check and make sure you actually followed through with the rabies vaccine.
Okay.
If not, when you picked up your animal, that was your 7-day warning.
Okay.
That's your warning. I don't want to have to write anyone a ticket, but it's a Alabama state law that they have to be rabies vaccinated.
And that is so important.
Yes,
and,
it is.
And it's fairly easy to get the rabies vaccination. I mean, we've got all the vets in the area. They're happy to do it, and it's
The vaccine is always going to be cheaper than a ticket.
absolutely. That is very true.
Yes.
Now, how many dogs have you picked up lately? Do you have a number?
Since in the last 3 months, it's been about 40 to 50.
Okay.
Warmer spring-like temperatures, they're usually out a lot more and everything. Cold's been, the last month or so, it's been, you can see a spike in 40 in 1 month down to 15 in the next.
Okay.
But
And with that said, if you have an outside dog or cat, make sure to have someplace warm for them to go, because we are going to get into some days. I know it hasn't been that cold yet, but we will have some cold days coming up, and we want to make sure that that your pets that have a rabies vaccination, if they're out, then that they have a nice warm spot that they can go, so that we don't have to worry about all those dogs that you do see
Yes.
outside. Now, let's talk about real quick before we get to Jay, the rules. If you see a dog out walking around on the street and it's somebody's dog, if they're out with it and it's in their yard, you said that it's
correct.
okay. But
if you are actively outside with your dog and it's a yard, no leash and everything, I'm not going to say anything. If you're able to call your dog back. Now, if you're outside with your dog and your dog is just running through the street, going in other people's yards, then that's why I have to stop and say, yes, it has to be on a runner, it has to be a leash and everything. But if you can verbally call your dog and keep it maintained in your yard, perfectly fine. Electric fence collars I've been seeing a lot of them here recently too.
Okay.
I've had a few calls on people that do have them and their neighbors not being aware that they have them.
Okay.
And if you have an electric fence and it's not up to where you think it is, gladly call me. I'll come out there, assist you, making sure the collar is on there correctly, talk with you about seeing where placement of the housing unit is to make sure it's staying in your yard.
Okay, that's perfect. So we've got resources for people then.
Yes.
So definitely call the shelter. Now, what's the number at the shelter now? How do they reach you in particular if they need help?
It's 256-341-4142.
Okay.
It's the new number.
Okay, great. And oftentimes y'all are really busy, so make sure you leave a message if you call the shelter and you need some help. Don't just hang up and try to call back later, because I know everybody's busy at the shelter. And speaking of busy, Jay, let's talk to you for a moment. So you've been at the shelter for how long?
4 months.
Okay.
4 months.
And I would just like to give some information about Jay here. She comes out and helps walk the dogs as a volunteer, and you help at events. I know you're not the only shelter staff member that does that. We have a wonderful group at the shelter that really care about the dogs and cats, and we see that because y'all are just doing an amazing job getting them out, and Douglas is doing an amazing job bringing them in, and so it's such a wonderful group that you have. So we appreciate all of you. But Jay, tell me what's going on at the shelter right now, because we've got the adoption fees waived between now and the end of December, correct?
Yes.
So thank you also to the city and to the city council for allowing that. And we've got a Black Dog Friday sale coming up with these adoptions waived. And this is Dutch up here right now. So Jay, tell us a little bit about Dutch.
So Dutch has been there for about a year or a little bit over a year. He's a really sweet dog. He kind of likes to hug your feet a little bit just because they all want love and affection. He's very playful. He gets along with other dogs. He'd be a great inside outdoorish dog, I believe.
He's one of my favorites because he's been there since he was fairly small. And I
Yes.
remember when he first got there, he was pretty timid, and he would just want to sit right next to your legs and not go anywhere if you got him out. And now he's gotten really brave. He'll go out and walk and have a good time. But if you are looking for a dog, and in particular a black dog, then Dutch would be a wonderful addition to your home. Now let's talk about some of the other dogs there. We've got with the Black Dog Friday. So before we get into that, well here's Rylan. Let's talk about him while we have him up, because he's been at the shelter 18 months. So tell us about Rylan, his personality. And
So Rylan, he's funny. He's a funny dog, I'd say. Whenever you go inside his kennel, he just wants love. I mean, they all do, but they do it in their own way of like trying to show you love. He'll do a little dance and he'll kind of jump up on you. I think he has like a sweet, funny, not really hyper, but kind of calm, little jumpy vibe.
okay.
Like that.
And speaking of hyper, that is something that all of these dogs, I mean, even though you guys are doing a great job getting them out during the week and walking them and letting them get some experience in the world besides the kennel, they are in that kennel quite a bit. So they may be hyper when you come out and meet them, but just remember that you've got to give them a little bit of time to decompress. So if you do come out to adopt a dog, and especially during this time where those adoption fees are waived, understand that when you take them home, they're going to have some time before they calm down, that they are just all very sweet dogs. We've all just fallen in love with them, but you can't expect them to just be the best house dog in the world the minute they come home with you.
Right.
Now let's talk about what happens with the adoption fees waived. If someone comes to the shelter and they want to meet one of these dogs, what's the procedure?
So when they first come in there, we'll ask them like, is it a dog or a cat, or like what kind of dog you look for, a small dog, big dog, or kind of what kind of breed, and they'll tell us, and we'll give them like a few options. We're trying to get them to where like they'll get the dog outside or like play with it in the play yard so they can get its personality, see how it's going to do. And once they do that, they're like, okay, I want such and such, and we'll be like, okay, we'll ask them questions like, do you have 2 references that you can provide? A valid driver's license? Do you have a fenced-in yard? Is it going to be outside? or is it going to be inside? Do you have other dogs? And especially if it can only be one dog per household. So, you know, it's not all, this dog isn't fixed, their own dog, and then we bring a dog that isn't.
Okay.
But they do have to get the dog fixed once they do adopt it. They have
Okay.
30 days to get it fixed. If they don't get it fixed, we do have to go back and get it.
Okay. Then Douglas has to come back in and
Yes, yes.
And even though the adoption fees are waived, the city is covering the spay and
Yes,
neuter
the
and the
spay and the
rabies shot.
rabies,
Okay.
yes.
And so they just have to take that action step of getting an appointment with one of the approved vets or at Alabama Spay and Neuter in Irondale.
We're trying to get, most of them will circle it on the paper of Alabama Spay and Neuter because they're kind of easier and I think it's kind of the best, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
But yeah.
And Alabama Spay and Neuter, they have a transport that picks up here in Sylacauga at Home Depot. So if you do adopt a dog, don't worry about that Alabama Spay and Neuter is in Irondale because they send that transport. Is it once a month they have a transport that comes down?
I believe so.
And so you would have, you'd be able to get that appointment hopefully, and you can also drive your dog or cat up there to them, but they have an amazing system where you just pull up at Home Depot, everybody's lined up and they have all the paperwork and they're ready to go, and they take your dog or cat to Irondale, fix it, and the next day you get the dog back at the Home Depot parking lot. So that makes it pretty easy.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely easy. Now, so if they don't get it fixed within 30 days, then that's when Douglas has to head out and you take the dog or cat back, correct?
We reclaim the dog.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
Or cat.
okay. And so, you know, that's something that's really important because
yeah.
we're also thankful for everyone who spays and neuters their dogs and cats because we've got way too many homeless dogs and cats in this area. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. But here's another black dog. Here's Opal. I don't know Opal that well, so tell me about Opal.
Opal, she is really, really sweet. She doesn't really like too many people, but
Okay.
she does have like her, you know, all dogs have their favorite staff who like, you know, will love on them and stuff. Opal's really good, like she's trained to where like we let some of the dogs out, let them run around a little bit on their own and they'll come right back, or they'll just kind of stay with you, walk with you. She's one of those who she'll stay by your side. She doesn't really run off, or if she does, she'll just sit like on the concrete somewhere close by the shelter.
So she's a dog that could be really good for somebody with some
yes.
land.
Yes.
And Opal, you said that she doesn't like everybody, but I've taken her out to walk before. When you say that, you just mean that she doesn't warm up to you super
Yeah,
fast. So she's a
yes.
sweet dog.
She's a sweet
Because I know I've
dog.
had no trouble getting her out of
Oh,
her,
yeah.
her kennel, of course.
It'd take her a minute.
And she will go walking with anybody, but I could see where she could be selective of who she wants to shower her love. But she
Yeah.
would definitely do that if somebody
yeah.
adopted her.
Oh yeah.
And now we've got some other, we've got well, here's Laramie. Let's talk about Laramie real quick. Now, he's also one of my favorites. I just love him. So tell me about his personality.
He came in with 2 other puppies. One was a girl and the other one's a boy, I believe. They were all 3 together, but of course we have to separate them at some point, you know, so they're not all crammed up together. He's very playful. Sometimes he's good on a leash, but you know, when they're puppies, we can't get them out as much, so it's like you gotta leash train them a little
Okay.
bit, but I think he's doing pretty good with that. I think he'd make a really good inside outdoorish dog, but very playful, like where he'd have like a bunch of toys and stuff just to run around with.
And he's one of those dogs that's so excited every time you
Oh,
walk down the
yes.
aisle
Just
to get him out to walk.
wagging.
He's just really excited to see everybody. So such a loving dog. And then we've got a couple more we'll talk about real quick. Here's Alina. And she's been at the shelter since January. So what's Alina's personality?
So she used to stay outside. So like the outside dogs, they don't really get to walk and stuff only because they are outside and it's hard to get them all outside. But she's inside now, so whenever I go in there and I, try and love on her as I'm cleaning a little bit, she's kind of hyper, but not too much.
Okay.
She likes to jump up a little bit, but she will like sit back down and wait on you and wag. She's very playful. Again, I think she'd make a good inside dog.
Okay.
Just to, have to love on.
And she'd probably love a couch, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
So with Black Dog Friday, just a quick mention here, the dogs that are the hardest to adopt out are the black dogs. They're the ones that are overlooked so much. So if you are looking for a dog, please consider adopting one of these black ones. And there are plenty to choose from, not just the ones that we showed, but again, we appreciate both of you so much and what y'all are doing at the shelter in general, and Thank you for coming on to talk about it, and we hope to see you join us walking dogs. We're there 11 to 1, and we'll be out there, and you can meet any of these wonderful dogs and all of the other ones there, and often you'll see Douglas and Jay there, of course, working, and they're there to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will have more Daybreak after these messages.